You ready, Raph?
You ready? Let's do it.
All right, so new era. Week 1 is in the books. Welcome to the newsletter for week 1 and week 2. Apologies for week 1. It just became very hectic for everybody. We were nursing some wounds trying to get back, up to speed. So we figured that what we would do was combine week 1 and week 2. Hopefully you guys will love the show. What we're going to try to do, we're keeping an eye on that clock. We don't want you guys watching for the next 3 hours of your life. And we don't want to be talking about this stuff for the next 3 hours of our life. So we're going to try to catch everything in 30 minutes. That's right. An abridged version, but we're going to give you everything that you will want and more. So tonight, our brother Vern couldn't be with us. Special shout out to Vern. It was just a scheduling thing. I had to do it right now. He couldn't be here. So we'll get the triangle back. But with that said, I want to introduce my co-host. You all know him. You love him. His name is Raph Ortega.
What's up? What's up, fellas? What's up, man? Feels good to be back. I've been waiting my whole fantasy life for this moment right here. I waited the whole offseason, but
I must say, I'm sorry to cut it, Raph. I must say that we did say this on screen, but I'm very glad that you're back in the saddle with us. I'm excited. I'm happy that you're here. So, just glad that you're back, putting your thoughts out on this video.
Feels good to be back. So let's jump in it, man. Let's do this.
All right. So the topics we want to bring to you, we have a few. The first topic is just going to be football in general. Raph, you have some thoughts on week 1, and then I'll jump in off of your thoughts.
Yeah, my quick thoughts on week 1 is, it seemed really weird in terms of just teams, defenses that really like wet the bed that really don't, and offenses that are usually lights out, not coming up to perform, not showing up. And I think the more I think about it, as much as we hate it, as much as we argue against it and we pull our hair out, man, preseason reps, there might be something to giving some of your starters a good number of preseason reps, because a lot of, these injuries, a lot of these things are timing and chemistry. Even though, some of these are veterans and they play with each other for years, man, you can't, you take that summer off, man, and you introduce some rookies and some new schemes and plays. There's no substitute for those reps. So I think that's what happened with a lot of these teams. You look at the Packers and what they did. You look at the New Orleans Saints defense and what they did, and remains to be seen whether those performances were outliers or if this a changing of the guard in terms of these teams. So that's just kind of my quick takeaway.
Well, here's the thing, and I'll be quick with this one. So the Ravens pretty much played the starters that they could throughout the offseason, but then how did they look last night? You take A-Rod, who basically poo-pooed away his offseason, really didn't put much into it. I think he thought he could just roll out of bed and be A-Rod, and I think he got a wake-up call. And I said this to you the other day. I think that New Orleans defense, they don't get enough credit. They typically, as the season goes along, they field a good defense. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that is the case for certain teams. But then I think, other teams, they pretty much, they landed themselves in their own situation. I don't think that San Francisco took Detroit that serious. And I think it showed as they got back into the game. Now, granted, the cornerback went down, but you can just tell. So certain people were ready, certain people were not. I don't know if I can put that all on the offseason so far. But with that being said, let's roll into the next topic. We talked about this off camera. Based on what we saw in week 1, and then relating it to a fantasy context, what's real and what's fake? So the first question I have for you is Green Bay real or fake?
I think Green Bay's real. And I'll tell you why, because I've seen enough from this Green Bay core. You got Aaron Jones on the ground. You got arguably the best wide receiver, Devontae Adams, and you got A-Rod, right? These are.
Well, wait, let's quantify that though. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When I say real or fake, I mean, is what you saw on Sunday, is that the real of how they're looking, or was that like a fake out? That's really the.
No, I think that's a fake out. I think that's a fake out, and basically for the reasons I'm about to tell you is because I separate like your one-hit wonders, repeating performances that might have been outliers versus people that have a track record of just showing up, right? And I think the Packers, for whatever transgressions that their GM has laid on that poor offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, A-Rod has been consistent. Devontae Adams is consistent. Aaron Jones is consistent. I think what we saw was a reflection of, you know, you mentioned it. You know, where was A-Rod's head at this summer? You know, where teams are getting together this off season and they putting in work with their teammates. Was A-Rod doing that? You know, you can't ignore the off season, even if you're great, and expect to just be able to come right in and be great. So,
right.
But I'm still gonna give him enough credit.
So on the flip side of that, in your mind, was New Orleans what you saw? Was that real or fake?
I think that was fake. I think that was fake. I mean, you know, I think that was a part of what. All right, so part of this is Jameis Winston, and I'll tell you why. Because what New Orleans has lacked is that true deep ball, that strong arm downfield. And as reckless as some of his throws looked, and I'll tell you, you know, no one's ever going to accuse him of being gun shy, you know. And sometimes, you know, he may throw 5 touchdowns, but would have anybody been surprised if he threw 5 interceptions? No. Right. And I think when you play that kind of offense and you hit, it makes that defense, it takes so much pressure off of your defense where they don't got to sit there and win the game. They just got to stand pat. You know, couple that with where, you know, Packers came in, it was perfect storm. It's like, I'm making you look good and you looking extra bad.
So you don't think that New Orleans can be a playoff team?
Anything is possible. I ain't gonna say that. I mean, if their offense hits the way that they played last week, then I think it's possible for sure.
Well, I'm going to say this. Like, I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Like I said on the board, I didn't see really much of the games because I was in transit this weekend or on Sunday. But looking at what I heard about the game and just different things that you may read, I actually think that New Orleans is real. I don't think that they're 38-3 every week real. But I think that Jameis, having studied under Drew for a year, having sort of gotten some humble pie, I think, and then the way he played that game, sort of playing it safe, I think he's learned his lessons. And I think as the weeks go on, he's going to expand. They're going to expand the playbook for him and let him open it up, but also let the game come to him. And I think based on that, like I said, their defense is pretty stout. They don't get enough credit. So do I think that they're going to go 17-0? No. Do I think that they will give Tom Brady a run for his money? Not really. But do I think that they could raise their hand and say, look, we want to compete for the playoffs? Yes. I think from a fantasy aspect, you got Jameis, Kamara, whoever they're floating as a second running back. The receivers and tight ends right now, But if Michael Thomas can come back, I think you have some solid contributors from a fantasy aspect. And I think that will hold up through the course of the season. Green Bay, I agree with you 100%. So having said that, this topic was sort of picking at me throughout the weekend. Teams with fantasy guys or you know, NFL teams with guys from fantasy that may have been overlooked, just in terms of, you know, what I heard and read from media is certain teams were just discarded. And I laid out some specific teams with a personal interest in at least one of them. So Detroit, Houston, Las Vegas, and Philadelphia. I think that players from those teams and those teams themselves were just discarded. Like, hey, like, don't look that way. But what we saw in week 1, at least was like the spark of life from a few of these guys. So I wanted to cover the bases with you on those just briefly. I would say in Detroit, we all felt that TJ Hockenson was going to be a great move, at least for week 1. And again, I don't want to overreact to anything, but at least week 1 showed, okay, this guy is going to be in line to get the rock. And we felt that. I know that I had a lot of hesitation about DeAndre Swift. Again, 1 week doesn't make a season, but it was nice to see him being used. I think we all kind of felt that Jamal Williams would get his reps. So that's my take on Detroit. And feel free to jump in when you want. Houston, I felt like Mark Ingram getting, 26 carries, 80-something yards, I mean, per average isn't the best, but it did show like, okay, there are some guys here that may get some love. Granted, it was versus Jacksonville, but where we all just sort of said, we don't want any part of anything Houston. You saw him. I believe David Johnson was active. I believe Brandon Cooks got in the mix, Tyrod Taylor. So, it's just like, hey, maybe do a second look. Some of these guys may have utility. Las Vegas, I think everybody completely said, look, outside of Romel, they didn't do it, you guys. But somehow, some way, they found a way to put points on that board. And then finally, Philly, I think that we all just had like reservations about everybody, from the quarterback to the running backs to the wide receivers. And I think that after Sunday, granted, they were playing Atlanta, but at least we can say, you know what? There are guys here that have usage. So what's your take on any of those four teams?
I'm going to start with Houston because I'm in Houston. So I can speak as to kind of what's going on in the local scene. Mm-hmm. I think, justifiably so in the offseason.
Yeah.
You don't walk away from Deshaun Watson and ever feel good about that decision, right? And I think that's coupled with, what Houston was with Deshaun Watson, it was almost inconceivable to think of what Houston would be like without Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. I think that really played a large role in that, and the internal dysfunction amongst the management as to how they're managing that team, right? They're bringing in all these pieces without really knowing if it's going to stick, right? And that's never a good way to build a core of a roster. But to your point, and maybe the sign, the story, the backstory is when you have an organization like that, lean on your vets, right? Lean on Mark Ingram to be that solid rock and let him do what he does, and then everybody will follow that leadership, right? Maybe that's the takeaway, is that when you have dysfunction, the smart move is let's give these OGs the reins and hope everybody follows and just takes suit. And I think that's kind of what I think we saw here. People really playing for pride, right?
Yeah.
So, with Detroit, I think the smart thing Detroit did was, I don't know about making like a 23rd hour decision to call Jamal Williams the starter for fantasy purposes is what anybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
But, I think they found a recipe as to how they could both be useful, right? I don't know if Swift is going to get that many carries a week, but you know what? You give him some space to operate and you got a good 1-2 punch there. And I think that they got a template, so we'll see where that goes. But it's always good to give a young running back another piece to work with, right? Just so that it's not all on him from the jump street.
Yeah, so, I think so far with what you're saying and just what I was saying earlier, I think if we had to describe it, like Houston's playing for pride, Detroit is playing with heart, like some kind of like, look, we feel we have something to work with here. So you got 2 more teams to go.
I think Vegas, moving to Vegas, I think really helped them because this was the first week or the first season where they actually allowed fans into their new building. So there's a lot of hype and momentum that comes in that. I think, for a sports team in Vegas, I feel like they're gonna draw a crowd, right? Because there's Raiders fans everywhere, kind of like Giants fans, kind of like San Francisco fans or whatever. Dallas fans, right? So I think. Week 1, new stadium, they're going to show up. They're going to play for their peoples, and I think that's what we saw. And, quite frankly, David Carr played great. I thought he played, a solid game. And I think that team lives and dies with his performance first and foremost. Mm-hmm. When he's on his money, I think the team looks good. When they're not, they struggling.
Yeah. Looking at that game, I was just I was like, Waller, we all knew he was a beast, but I'm like, man, this guy is out here playing like sandlot football. He's just doing what he wants. But I really think that Mel hit on goal with him, not only because he's a Las Vegas Raider, but it's pretty obvious that he's going to get the ball. Like, it's going through him. And that's a good place to be at for a fantasy manager. So,
yeah.
Talk to me about Philly.
Oh, Philly. Jalen Hurts, I think if they don't see, I think Philly has this history of killing their quarterbacks, right? They bring in these good quarterbacks with good pedigrees, with got the tools, but they're always doing stuff around them to never giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Mm-hmm. So again, I won't want to say is we've seen this show before. I just hope I hope the show doesn't end the same way, right? Because now you got a brand new quarterback. He got the tools. He looks like he's the goods. Now just, surround him with pieces, you got basically 2 starting tight ends, learn how to use them if you can. Those are assets. Establish a run game and stick with, stick with your boy. His name is past
Miles.
Yeah, Miles Sanders. Yeah. Like, just you got to commit, just to commit to your running back, right? and just commit to, surrounding, Hurts with playmakers. And I think they're going to be all right, but they can't get out of their own way. It's usually what happens.
No, but I see one thing about Philly being up here for all these years, law school, work, whatever, like you just learn. And where I said Detroit and Houston are playing for pride and heart, Philly, every time they walk out on that field, it doesn't matter what team it is, what year, they're always playing with pride and heart. And I think that this was no different. I think for me, I jumped off the Miles bandwagon because it's like, this guy is an awesome athlete, but are they going to give him the carry? Like, he can do it. So I think what I saw in that game, again, it was Atlanta. I get it. But what I saw is you have some pieces there that, from a fantasy aspect, you can work with. You can work with Gainwell. You can work with Miles. You can work Hurts, Devontae Smith, even maybe Rager, the two tight ends. So they have pieces where I think we all just kind of said, yeah, Philly, But, on second look, it's like they may be on to something. So from fantasy standpoint, you got your Philly. Oakland is pretty much the Waller show. And, Jacobs playing, that man.
I'll tell you what, the NFC East we saw last year ain't gonna be the NFC East we saw this year, with the exception of the Giants.
Right. Well, the Giants just have to figure it out, man. I think that this goes out of the topic. I don't think they were overlooked. I think, at least I had expectations of them. But I'm willing to say it's just 1 week. I think Denver has a better defense than people gave credit. I think that the Giants are still trying to figure it out, but I think that you will see a team come of age this season. That's what I really think for them. Okay. So the next topic is, in general, are there any teams that, we asked the question, where are these teams going from a fantasy perspective? Is there any team that you would like to highlight, talk about, what you're expecting, as we go through the season?
Just from a fan standpoint, the Falcons. I think we always, we knew that the Falcons have always relied heavily on slinging the rock. They've always had, until recently, obviously this season, Julio and Ridley on the sidelines, and they've always had some competent running game to lean on as well. Their defense has always been subpar, right? They've always, you got to beat them. It's always a shootout with them. And I think what they're learning this season is, for as much as greatness, the first 5 minutes of that Atlanta game, I swear I thought Matt Ryan only had eyes for Calvin Ridley. Like, he only had eyes for Calvin Ridley.
It was looking good, right?
It was making me feel great.
Yeah.
But you know what? But what happens when that happens is defenses start to realize that they're like, all right, we're gonna take you out of the game. Where are your other playmakers, right? Yeah. Russell Gage, I believe it's Russell Gage, had like no targets or something like that. Like, it was crazy. Mm-hmm. And Kyle Pitts is a rookie, for as much as a physical specimen that I think he's going to ultimately be, you can't expect him to come out week one, and just perform like he's Travis Kelce. It's not going to happen. His body's still growing, Right. So I think that, coupled with, you got a veteran aging quarterback, but really I think that offense needs to rediscover a little bit of what their identity is going to be, because they don't have the same pieces.
I think I agree with you, but I think that trading Julio, I don't know if I think it was a salary cap related move or whatever. I don't know if I would have moved on from him yet, especially bringing in Kyle Pitts into your system. Mm-hmm. I think that Atlanta, they always go for like the low hanging fruit. So in my mind, they didn't need Kyle Pitts. Maybe you trade down and get one alignment, or maybe, you fortify yourself somewhere else. But I just think they always go for like the okie doke when building their team. And I think that it hurts them. So I just feel like, Atlanta, they need to figure out what their direction is going to be. I think that they have the skill players, but I think that they have questions along that offensive line that are going to haunt them all year. So yeah. Let's get into the power rankings. I want to talk about this a little bit. What we did, League, was we compiled, and we're going to build on this every week. We're going to make it prettier. But for week one, we just wanted to give you something. So, Raph, if you could post what we have. We're going to do a different spin this year. I'm just going to keep talking as you get everything ready. Yeah. What we decided was, and post when you're ready. What we decided was we will go off of Fantasy Pros, our favorite, like our official sponsor, one of them. We'll use their rankings, and then, between the three of us, we will come up with our own. And then we'll do like the averages and see where we fall out. So this is what we have for right now. And we just want to highlight, we want to talk about 3 things from this, but let's just go through it loosely. So, I got the helmets here. Let's see if I can reach them all. In the 10 spot, we have Germ. Let me see. In the 10 spot, we have Germ. You see the helmet?
Oh, no, you can't because I got my screen shared.
Oh, okay. Well, no worries. We'll put the helmets up later. But you have in the 10 spot, well, really, we have a tie for 9th and 10th, Romel and Germ. Then coming up to the 8 spot, we have Plunkert. We have a tie for the 6 and 7 spot. That would be myself and Brett. Then we have Raph at the 5. We have Vern at the 4. We have Marv at the 3. And then we have a tie for number 1 with Ricky and Gene. That's our ranking. Then when you go over to Fantasy Pros, you have myself at the 10, Romel at the 9, Germ 8, Marv 7, Vern 6, Raph 5, Ricky 4, Brett 3, Plunkert 2, and then Gene number 1. So Raph, just leave that up for a few more seconds and then we can just dive into our thoughts.
Sure. And I think the biggest takeaway here, and I think just to give people tonight a reason why this is interesting is because you got the quote unquote experts on the right, and then you got just kind of what our eyes tell us on the left. And I think it's interesting because in many ways we mirror the experts, but in some ways we don't. And I think it'd be interesting, I think, when we get into it, to discuss what we think are the things moving some of these teams out of these certain spots and where we ultimately see them. But I think it's a good comparison.
Yeah. And again, I actually earlier, I don't know if you can hear it off camera. If you can hear my dog snoring, like, forgive us for that. She's had a long day. So I don't know if it comes through on the recording, but I can't front like
that. I don't hear it.
Okay, because she's getting loud. I'm like, shut up. So anyway, the thing about Fantasy Pros, and I want to be brief in the interest of time, but I always wonder how they compile their lists. Like, I wish that they put out like an algorithm or formula where they're like, this is how we come up with your thing. Now, it's no shock to me. I've been like in last place for ever since I've been using Fantasy Pro, so whatever. But, I would just sort of break in the wall a little bit. I would say that I'm better than, some of the teams that are ranked ahead of me. But I don't think I'm a contender yet. But I would say, yeah, I think I have a more complete squad than this person or that person. And then you look at, say, Marvin, who's at the 7, and it's like, well, how did he land in 7? Or you look at Plunkert, who's number 2, and you're like, okay, well, like, yeah, he came out and did his thing last week, but did he go bonkers where he's now number 2? But that's the beauty.
Are these rest of the season rankings?
Yeah, and I did it that way because I didn't want to just base it off of 1 week being week 2. So I figured the more fair way would be, if we're doing a power ranking, where do we look at overall, but definitely as we sit here today.
Sure. All right.
Because week 2 could just say, well, you got a good matchup this week, so you're up in pole position, when that may not reflect your whole aura.
Okay.
So with that being said, I think the beauty in this is you get like the Fantasy Pros, which we still have questions like, how do you compile this? And then you have, for this week, it was just Raph and I, but, next week it'll be the 3 of us will come up with our averages. So with that being said, Raph, there were 3 main topics from the power rankings that we wanted to cover. First one being your ranking. So have at it. You've been talking about this. So have at it. Now I'm going to reply, but go ahead.
No, listen. So here's kind of my perspective, right? When I look at the rankings, I'm looking at
and feel free, if you want to cut out this thing so we can go back to the regular view, do that or leave it up, like whatever you choose.
All right, let me stop sharing. All right, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
So for me, the way that I'll preface it, I think people use different matrices or metric systems to determine where they put people. Mm-hmm. I kind of simplify it, and I just like, listen, let me just look at your starting squad, and I look at it in terms of how does your squad stack up against the next squad over the entire season. right?
How does this apply to your? Give me your. Why do
I'll
you
tell you right
feel?
now because I feel
Yeah.
so. So I honestly, I think that my starting squad, I think is top four. I'm not saying I'm number one. I'm
Okay.
just thinking I just don't feel like I was six, and that's why I changed my name and
Oh,
questioned it to six.
I'm sorry. I'm pulling up your team now. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so and here's the thing, when you got McCaffrey and Cook on any given week, I mean that's an anchor that I'll put those boys up against anybody, and if Atlanta's doing what they got to do and those targets keep flying his way, okay.
Okay.
The rest of the lineup, listen, I think with Fitzpatrick going down, we'll remain to be seen how that affects McLaurin, Scary Terry over there, but we'll see. He's still the best target out there. Like I said, Kyle Pitts, I wasn't expecting him to come in week one and put up Kelsey numbers. I do think he's going to be middle of the pack tight end for the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to be, I think him and Hockenson are going to be right there, depending week in and week out. That's kind of where I picture it. My flex, Landry worked out this week. It may not work out next week. We'll see. But I think, when I just look at the entire, just my lineup,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm top four. I don't feel like I was 6th, 7th, 8th.
All right. So we promised you guys 30 minutes, but we're going to go over that a little bit, but not about long. So Raph, here's the thing. And it's funny that you and I are doing this and Vern is not here, like the two attorneys. So, okay, let's start with this. So you feel your top four. So who are the 3 other people that are better, that have rosters that you would consider better than you?
I think Gene.
Okay. Okay.
I can't put Vern there yet. And I think Vern has.
You said you can't put him there yet.
I can't put him above me just yet.
Just give me the 3. Just give me your 3. Let's see if you can. Take your time.
So I'm gonna give. I would say this. I'll say Gene. Okay. I would say Marv. I'll say Ricky out of respect, but I don't lineup for lineup. I don't know if I would put Ricky ahead of me lineup for lineup.
Well, Raph, if you don't feel it, you don't feel it. You got who do you feel is better than you? Because I want to debate you, but I need to know who you feel.
I would put Plunk's team, Gene's team, and Marvin's team ahead of my own.
Okay.
And then I would put, if we had that like that tight, that 1.5 or 3.5 spot.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. You throw in my team, you throw in Vern's team, and
okay.
That's kind of how I look at that.
Okay. And are we talking full roster or just starting lineup?
Really just starting lineup.
Okay. Right? Okay, I got you. So here's the thing, Raph, and I've said this to you. The way your team is composed, you're very top heavy. Now, in saying that, it's not a bad thing because you still have at least through Sunday, at least 5 total people that you can say, you know what, I got a crew, right? But I think that you run out of steam for the second half of your lineup. And it's kind of nitpicky on my end, but okay, tight end, flex, defense, and kicker. It's like, all right, like whatever, dude. Like, all right, kicker, like I can go
you gotta be weak somewhere, right?
Right, correct. So, but in saying that, if we're comparing it to a full lineup, how, looking at the people that you called out, okay, what I like to do is say, well, how many times or who cancels each other out on each lineup? So let's compare you to Gene right now. And let's give a check mark. Okay. And I want you to be fair.
Yeah.
Let's give a check mark to him or you. Okay.
Okay.
So Gene is bad news bear. So at quarterback, he has Lamar and you have Herbert. Who would you give the check to?
I give it to Jackson.
Okay. And we don't have to do why, because that's going to take all night.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, let's just be fair. Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook in tandem, I'm giving you the check mark over Mixon and Chubb.
Okay.
Okay. Hopkins and Deontay Johnson versus Ridley and McLaurin. Who are you giving the check to?
I feel like that's a push. I feel
Why?
like that's a push.
I got to ask you why on that one.
Sure. I think Arizona, while Hopkins is still that dude, right? And he showed it last weekend, they have so many good talent wideouts and they got so many receiving options. Is Hopkins going to put up 22, 25 points a game? I mean, he's going to have his weeks where he's going to go off. I don't see that. But
and granted, for this year, Gene has, at least for this week, he holds the belt over you. So just keep.
Oh yeah. Listen, no question. Listen, I gave him his roses on the chat. So, but I'm talking about season long, just lineup for lineup. I think if Atlanta figures it out, I think Ridley I think he's pushing with Hopkins.
Now here's the thing. If they don't figure out that O-line in Atlanta, Ridley is not going to do what we think he's going to do. They're going to have to shorten that offense up a lot so Ryan can get the ball out. But either way, I would break the receivers down. I would give him the check mark over you versus Ridley. When it comes to McLaurin and Deontay Johnson, that's an unknown. I believe that Pittsburgh, they operate their trio of receivers versus, Fitzpatrick being out. What is that going to mean for McLaurin in the long run? So if there was a push, I may give the push right there. So the receivers, I think I see where you're saying with receivers. So far, you have the better running back. You say he has the better quarterback, and you have a push. So right now, if you had the pendulum your way, it's swinging your way because of the running backs. But here's where I think, again, which plays into my theory, it starts to fall apart with you because we're talking about a total starting lineup. Kicker does matter regardless. Defense does matter. So, okay, Kyle Pitts versus Hockenson. See, the thing is, a rookie tight end, I don't know what Pitts is going to do ultimately at the end of the season, but he has to learn the game. And we're playing in a very week-to-week real-time sport. And I think Hockenson has a decided advantage over Pitts. Yeah. I don't think in the long run of their careers it'll be that way, but for now, this season, yes. So check mark that way. It's the intangibles, I guess, is like you have the squad. You just don't have the intangibles, is what I'm saying. If you're relying on Jarvis Landry every week, God bless you, Raph. I mean, we know what he is, right? So then, Gene comes with Allen Robinson. He could put Mike Davis in there. He could put Marvin Jones in there. And we're just talking flex. And I think whoever he puts in there, he has you beat. Defense, Steelers. I'm taking the Steelers over the Bills. Yeah. Kickers, I mean, it's like, look, I don't want to be petty. We're talking about kickers. But I just think the intangibles, and this is where you start to draw that fine line. Gene, he just has the intangibles over you. Where, yes, you have an advantage in running backs, but your last four are decidedly not as good as his. So we said Gene. All right, now let's look at Plunkett. Plunkett is Mahomey. So Patrick Mahomes, I'll do this one. I will give him the check over you. He has Patrick Mahomes. The running backs, you beat him out head into. I don't even know why you chose Plunkett, to be honest with you. But this is what you think. We're debating him. Mm-hmm. Jefferson and Cooper, I'm not getting, out of, going to the moon because Cooper had a great week. I think that the game plan just went that way. He was being force-fed the ball, but I don't think Cooper's going to come out and start doing 40 points every week. Like, let's just be honest. Yeah. Justin Jefferson is based off of 1 week, again, not getting out of hand with these prognostications. He's going to be just fine, but I think that I don't think Plunk is in your league, but we're because you called him out, we're talking about Plunker. Kelsey, advantage. Godwin, again, Tampa Bay, whoever's week it is, however the game plan goes is going to dictate who does well. So Plunker could be riding a little roller coaster with him. I would actually say you're better than Plunker overall because you just fill in the blanks. Your running back advantage is so decidedly in your favor that he can't keep up. Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson at this point, in my mind, are pretty much pushes. Cooper, I'm not going to go too crazy with that, but Cooper is better than McLaurin, I would say, from a productive standpoint. Who else did we say? Vern, you're tying up with Vern. See, now you're talking. Again, I think Vern has more of a complete team. So we've already covered the running back thing. You're pretty much going to have the better check mark for the running backs in every one of these matchups. Right. But let's look at Vern. Okay. So Vern, unless he's changing his name again, it's a that.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. Right now, I think that Jalen Hurts, it goes in our conversation earlier, not given enough credit. I think Jalen Hurts could be a 25 to 30 point guy a week. Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, I think, same better quarterback, but same kind of production, only because he's not running like Hurts is running.
Right.
So you might have a wash right there. Again, Najee Harris, all the rookies, it's going to take them a little bit. He went up against Buffalo. So we really don't know. We haven't seen him get untracked yet, but I think his day is coming. The receiver game. This is where it gets a little interesting.
We got an entanglement going on.
Yeah, Vern is going to have to figure out his receivers on a weekly basis. And I said this all along, Mike Evans, Tampa Bay, I don't want any part of that. When his week comes, Mike Evans is going to give you 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. When it's not his week, so Jamar Chase, do with Jamar Chase with what you will. This week he plays Chicago. They're not rollovers. So we'll see. We'll see. He's a rookie. He's learning the game. But I think overall, Mark Andrews, here's where he has you beat. Jonathan Taylor at his flex.
Right.
Rams defense. Again, the intangibles. So anybody coming with that third running back, which you don't have,
right.
Which, going back to your draft, I felt like you went in a way that neglected the third running back. Why? Only you can explain. But this is now a disadvantage for you. So Vern's coming with Jonathan Taylor, Rams defense, and kicker for KC, and Mark Andrews. That wipes you out, Raph. I mean, and he has Barkley on the bench. So as Barkley starts to get his act together, and he puts out there Barkley, Taylor, and one of those running backs, in tandem with his whole squad, he wipes you out in my mind. And I'm not saying, score-wise or matchup-wise, but if we're just analyzing.
On paper.
So I think Vern is ahead of you. And we said Plump, Gene, Vern, we said Marv. Okay. So looking at Marvin's team, again, the intangibles, he's going to hit you with 3 running backs every week. Tom Brady is going to, basically give a wash. Then, where you fall off in those wide receivers, he doesn't. Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen. It's a perfect lineup. Points per reception. He got 2 point per reception guys to play in his lineup. So Marvin wipes you out. You know what I mean? So and so you start adding this stuff up. Then you look at sort of what I would say, because I said this, Raph, you have the home run threats up top. When you start getting to the intangibles, this is where the lesser thans can catch you. So you start looking at your contemporaries. You look at Brett. Let's see. Let's pull up Brett. And I do have my eye on the time. So let's look at Brett. Brett, where are you? Knee squad. Now, Dobbins went down. We'll see. We'll see. But you look at his wide receiver tandem, and he's running the 3 wide game. Diggs, Metcalf, Woods, or Cooper Kupp, however he goes, I think, and tight end Dallas Goedert. Personally, I think that Goddard has a ways to go. I don't know if he's there yet for the Eagles, but he is sort of the person that I guess is the hot topic of the week for them. But those 3 receivers, basically that's what you're doing. I think his 3 receivers and the flex guy is better, keeping in mind the tight end is better than what you had. So, Derrick Henry, once he gets on track, he can't compete with you on the other running back, but Josh Allen over Herbert, slightly, but still. And again, Brett gets you with the intangibles, Justin Tucker, Buccaneers defense. So, I think that's more equal and even. I think you two are fighting in the same, WWE event.
We're an undercard matchup.
But that's what I'm saying. So and this is just a disclaimer. Any week that you're rolling out McCaffrey and Cook and Herbert and Ridley, it's like, dude, you're swinging for the fences. So your team is good, but it's just you don't have a complete 1 through 9 team, only in my opinion. It doesn't mean that you won't finish with a record of 10-3, 11-2, whatever it may be, 12-1. It just means that those home run guys better come out to hit home runs every week, because your intangibles right now, as we speak, right now,
they're not gonna carry any lackluster performances.
That's how I see it. So then you take again, And I guess the last example would be like my team. So I feel like my team is sort of it'll be a consistent team. Like it'll come out and give you consistent points every week. I don't think I had the kind of team that's going to put up these blockbuster points. But what I do have is a team that says, okay, I'm rolling out these three or trying to roll out these three running backs. The receivers, like, but overall, it's like I feel like on a week where your guys are not coming out to hit the home runs, and you're like last week, like, hey, I'm coming out to put up $135, $140. I think I have a chance. So that's what I'm saying. Like once you throughout the course of the season close the gap with your intangibles, if you decide, you'll be in a different place. However you do it, free agency, trade, whatever you do. But for now, I can't give you. You're in that sort of second tier, Raph. You just gotta deal. Only on paper, because as it plays out, like you can win any week, so that's not in dispute. It's just going. It's just like every week, I know that I'm the underdog every week, but I know in my heart, I feel like, you know what? I think ESPN isn't giving me enough credit this week. I think I can get more than, I think I can get +5, +10 more points than what they have me ranked at. And that's what I think about your team.
Okay.
All right. So next team, we'll talk briefly, again, keeping in mind the time, Plunk's ranking. Plunkert wasn't feeling his ranking at all either. I remember in the last video, I had him, I was going to put him at 9, then I changed it. Just disclaimer, Plunk, I love you. You're my guy, man, for a long time. But I changed his ranking. And then I'm not going to lie to you, like the way that he came out this weekend, I was like, oh, like maybe I got to give him more credit. So our rankings are our rankings. They're already published. But what I will say is off the record, from me to Plunk, like he did work. I mean, if he can come out this week again and put up these blockbuster points, then I gotta really like recalibrate and reconsider his ranking. Like this guy has to be higher than, 9, 10. Like he really like, and I mean like a big jump.
Sure.
So that's all I want to say on Plunk. Anything on his ranking?
No, listen, I think, like I said, I like his team on paper, maybe probably a little more so than you did, or you do currently. You just want to see more of it. Mm-hmm. I look at his team and I thought he was better than where he was ranked as well. I'm not sure where exactly, not top 2, but not, 7, 8, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think anytime, listen, I think it's not a surprise anymore. Travis Kelce is the tight end position. It's Travis Kelce and everybody else. Mm-hmm. And when you can roll out Kelce as your tight end, that allows you the flexibility to kind of do what you want in your flex position and your other positions, because nobody can touch him in that offense. It's such a mismatch. And it's like, people have been trying to figure out the tight end position for years. It really has already been figured out. It's Kelce and everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Because again, like I need to see it again from Plunk. I mean, sometimes we just have a good week, and that's, not to play Plunk short, but when you look at it, again, I don't know if his team can put up 180 every week when you literally don't have a second running back. Right. So again, I just think it was a culmination of just a few great things that occurred. I think when you look at his running back, Singletary, I mean, if you're telling me now that Singletary is going to be a consistent contributor, then like I said, I'll recalibrate. If you're telling me now that, between Cooper and Godwin, that they're going to come out and put up mega points like that every week, I'll recalibrate. Because remember, I have a familiarity with Cooper and Godwin, so I know how they operate. I know that Cooper can have some mega monster games. I know that there are times when, Cooper's just out there just, living. So if you're telling me now that they're going to be not to the tune of what they did last week, but if they're going to now be consistent, plus points a game kind of guys, then I think I gotta reboot and rethink Plunker's ranking. But for right now, I definitely need to see it again. Definitely. We'll see. To be continued. Okay. Last is Gene. I think that Gene was consistent in preseason polls. And I think coming out of the gate, he made a statement. And I think his ranking is justified, whether it's tied. And I know how you feel. I don't want to give up the behind the scenes, pull back the curtain. But, I really wasn't prepared to move him to the number 1 spot which then culminated in him being a tie with Ricky. I think Ricky, my philosophy, and this is why I want to do the averages this year, because it'll take away really, you know, subjectivity. But I feel like Ricky is the champ until he's booted from the spot, either by like taking a series of L's, or we just see like his team just isn't real. So, and I feel like Gene, he made enough of a statement in game one and with a full lineup that at least I'm open to, you know, the suggestion that, you know, he may be number one spot material. So anything on that?
I think Gene is the best team in the league. I mean, that's my feeling. I think top to bottom, I think he has the strongest squad in the league. That's just my feeling. I don't necessarily, and I say this as a beneficiary of sitting at the top of the rankings just a year ago. But I don't, you know, I think I feel you when you say, you know, you're the champ until you get beat or until you really warrant not being up there anymore. But I think, you know, I look at Gene's team, or I look at Ricky's team, and like David Montgomery, right? We were like, all right, are they gonna do right by him? Is he gonna do what he needs to do? Mm-hmm. And I think it showed yesterday what he could do. Like he looked good yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
You know, he did. So there's promise there. You know, A-Rod, he ain't gonna score 8 points a game, right? I mean, it's just not gonna happen. Right. James Robinson, Jacksonville is gonna be interesting this year because, again, they got the template last year on how to use James Robinson. Mm-hmm. Why are they diverting from that? I don't understand. You know, but you know, that could be the one move that, like, you know, if you had a mulligan, you know, mm-hmm. I don't know if you take James Robinson in that, you know, end of the 4th, early 5th round pick, if that's how they're gonna use him. Yeah. Because he doesn't become a reliable RB2, right? Right. You know, Julio, again, I think Tennessee, they got to still figure it out, you know, and, you know, talent alone can't win games. So, but again, you know, to me, I feel like that's Deebo Samuel. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about. Deebo Samuel, for as long as he was sitting out there in the draft, man, I think everyone should be kicking themselves that they let Deebo drop to where he did, that allowed him to pick him up. I forgot what round he went in, but it was stupid. Because he's the clear wideout. You know, he's a clear wide receiver one in San Francisco. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that's going to be somebody who I think should be in the lineup personally.
Raph, we're not giving advice. We're not doing.
Yeah, you're not giving advice. But you know, and you got Kareem Hunt sitting on the bench. Mm-hmm. You know, those are all serviceable, you know, starting quality players that are currently not in this lineup. And I can't, you know, Tyreek Hill, he's gonna give you 37 on any given night. But that can't be the anchor of your team.
And I don't think it is. I think that Ricky, I stand by what I said earlier. He has built a solid team. It's just, you know, sometimes you just have a week like that. Again, it coincides. You know, week one is one of the toughest weeks for fantasy football because we're rolling out guys. We really don't know what to expect yet. And sometimes it can just go either way. So I think when you get a win in week one, you're happy. You're really happy. And if not, you just say, you know what? I get it. So now I'm starting to learn about what I have, and you move on. So Ricky's score was not indicative of what I think his team is going to be. I think that, you know, Green Bay has to figure it out. I think that everybody else looks good. I mean, he's ready. He has depth on his bench. So he has enough pieces. I'm not going to, because I'm saluting Ricky, I'm not going to push back on Deebo. And then I have Brandon. But let's just say, like, Kyle Shanahan misled a lot of people on, like, every component of his team, whether the running backs, the wide receivers, the quarterback. This dude just basically just let whatever news break out, and he didn't clarify anything. I still believe in Brandon on my team, but again, this is about Ricky and having Deebo. I'm not going to overreact to anything in week one to where Deebo's not going to come on and get 40 points a week. I think that if anything, everybody in that lineup is going to establish themselves and let whoever the quarterback is going to be get the ball around. With that being said, you won't see Brandon in my lineup for a while. But again, with regard to Ricky, he has a squad. And I think that I'm not going to hold week one against him at all.
Okay.
Now, having said that, let's just do a 30-second recap of the games last week. Not really anything to say, maybe one or two adjectives and move on. So, you know, I got the win over Vern. I think that Vern's team is I think it was just week one. Like, I don't think that that's will reflect on what Vern's team is going to be over the season. Anything with that game? 1 or 2 words?
Nope.
Okay, next I see Plunkett versus Ricky. We just discussed that. I think that the truth with these teams lies more, it's closer to what the average score would be. I don't think Plunkett is $180 a week, but I think that he's showing that, hey, if it all comes together, be all right. I think that Ricky, he'll get a mulligan. I'm looking forward to bigger and better things from him next week. 100 proof. Romel pretty much smashed Brett. And I think that where earlier we're talking about overlooked teams in real life, I think I want to give Romel some credit, putting up $170. And with the team that he has between CD, Waller, Russell Wilson, Locke, everybody came to show up. And I think that Romel, I think that if he has the people in there ready to show up every week, I think he can achieve numbers like that, on more than one occasion, because he has some real, boom kind of guys. So Brett, I gotta give him a pass. I mean, the Dobbins thing in some different way, shape, or form, it's like 6 degrees of separation from Dobbins. Mm-hmm. Like in another league, I felt that injury. And I think that Brett is just trying to, do what he needs to do. Having said that, the running back had a good game, but I just think Brett just ran up against a buzzsaw. Has some things to figure out. We'll see. Gene, in your game, we covered that ad nauseum. Then last, Marvin and Germ. Again, I think Germ was consistent with what I said. Like, it's going to be fun. And I think for a minute on Sunday, when I was on the train.
He was making a comeback.
Right. I was looking at the scores. I was like, is Germ going to pull this out? So Germ is going to make it very interesting. And I think that he's going to get some wins, like for sure, because he's going to have some weeks where his lineup, they come to do business. Or they come to do work. So let's now move on to week 2. Raph, call out the games. I have the helmets lined up. I'll try to hold them up and call out the games.
First up, you got Swedesboro versus the Bad News Bears.
Swedesboro. Okay, so we got Germ. Wait, Swedesboro versus the Bears?
I lies. My bad. KOD versus Knee Squad.
Raph, you're killing me. So Brett versus Kiss of Death.
Yes.
Helmets. You see them?
Yep.
Looking good. All right. The numbers are on one side. You're right. I got to get the thing. Like. All right. So that's that game. Give me the next team.
Next we got my homie Don't Play That versus Bad News Bears.
See the helmets?
To the
right. All right.
Then we got still 2 in the possible, or as I would like to rename him, still in first place. and Swedesboro.
There we go. Yep, spin around. All right.
Then we got 100 Proof versus the Riddler.
Oh, and for Romel, his numbers on the back. Romel, there you go, brother. 80. Spinning around.
Do it. Pour one out for my homies.
And last but not least, you have myself. And you have Marv. There we go. Nice. Spinning around. These helmets, man. I gotta say, man, collectively, between the 3 of us, this was a great idea. All right. So, what's going to be different this year, guys, is we're not going to cover every game. We just want to really, again, interest of time, cover what we think is the game of the week. So me and Raph and I were talking, and we feel that the game of the week is going to be Plunkett and Gene. There we go. Yep. There we go. So let's just give a few words about it and move on.
I'm interested to, I want to see. First of all, I think, Kelsey's going to go bananas again. And I want to see Jefferson, I think this is an interesting, I had Jefferson last year, obviously I threw him back, but his efficiency rating was almost unattainable, right? It was almost unsustainable how efficient he was last year.
Welcome to your world.
Wait, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Jefferson's like he had like a 70% catch rate or some astronomical statistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think couple of that with Thielen not really playing up to his standard, it was just a perfect scenario for him to flourish like he did.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens now that Thielen looks like he's showing up. He looks healthy. You know, he's getting the attention of the quarter of Kirk Cousins and all that. And let's see what he does. That's what I'm going to be looking for. You know what, in Gene, man, I think Joe Mixon. We've been waiting a long time to call this brother's name and give him his flowers, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like once he became the true third down back, they got rid of Gio. Here we go. You know, but let's see if it's a repeat performance. You know, I think that's going to be the key to his squad is going to be Joe Mixon.
You know, you just made a great point. I think that, which I didn't cover earlier when we were talking about you in comparison to Gene, which would then be another check with Gene, maybe. If Joe Mixon can establish himself as that guy, his lineup is just going to be insane. I mean, to be honest with you, because Joe Mixon can catch, he can run, he can do it all. Like you said, true third down back. So, you know, Gene, yeah, he is the top dog, man. It's funny that based on the current lineup right now, which fluctuates during the week based on what they do, that he is the projected underdog. It's very interesting. And you know, again, go ahead.
No, and I don't think we touched upon this. But Lamar Jackson, year one, he won me a title, right? Basically. Year two, he should have won me a title, but I think, you know, we were worried about whether teams figured him out, right? And game scripted what he does on the ground out of his arsenal, which really neutralizes, you know, him as a fantasy quarterback. But as we saw yesterday, you know, it's still really hard to contain the dude, right? He's still going to give you some production on the ground that you got to account for. And I think that's like having McCaffrey with his receiving skills getting also 22 touches a game. It becomes like a position and a half.
I'm starting to think that Lamar Jackson is the NFL equivalent of Allen Iverson. Let him score 40 points. You know, I say that, you know, in the basketball context, but let Lamar do whatever it is he's going to do, because we know when things get tight, red zone, whatever, he can't really deliver the goods consistently. And I think from a fantasy standpoint, it works out. But I feel like he has not worked on the other aspects of his craft. They made a good point on the game last night. Like, he hasn't really shown a propensity to be accurate throwing outside of the numbers. And it shows. And it's like, we keep saying this, I said it, until he masters the position of quarterback, and this is a real life thing, he's not going to take that team deep into the playoffs. There's no reason that Oakland should have beat them last night. There's no reason with his level of talent that they should run into games like that. But he is not a quarterback who can run. He's basically a running back who can throw. Right. You know, because it's like Lamar, like, you have to establish that you can pass the ball, and if in a jam, then you take off. Not so much you're just always looking to run around and duck and dodge. Like,
he's a running back version of Taysom Hill.
Right. So it's very superficial what he brings to the table at this point. Now, in the fantasy world, I think Gene, it doesn't matter. Like, he'll be all right. But I think ultimately, you know, if it's a game, and teams are kind of saying, look, we're not, okay, you can run, but we're ready for it. So you may get 5 yards, 5+ yards, but you're not going to run for 200 yards unless anymore. Those days are done. So Lamar needs to figure himself out. And I think if he does in the real world, I mean, this team with Gene, like Jackson and Joe Mixon, I mean, it could be trouble for everybody. So that's the game of the week. I mean, I'm not really looking for any more than a good game from both of them. I think that personally, if I had to put my hat on it, like, I think Gene is going to crush Plunk. But I don't want to put the 5 fingers of death on Gene. So I'm just going to say, I don't know why Gene is the underdog. I think that Plunkert will have something to say. I think it'll be a competitive game, but I think Gene is it's too much. It's too much here. Too much. So with that topic down, we have one last thing we wanted to do for this week. We want to debate a hot topic. So Raph, you go ahead and throw out the topic, throw out your piece, and then we'll go from there.
You know, America's team, right? The Dallas Cowboys. specifically one, Ezekiel Elliott. Hot topic question is, has he taken a step back? Is he the Ezekiel Elliott that we thought he was? Or is he who we saw last week, right? And that's the hot topic. And I'm gonna take a controversial position, and I'm gonna go ahead and say I think he's lost it a little bit. You know, I think he looks in shape. You know, I know he dropped some pounds, and I don't know to what extent that's affected him, but you know, there's no reason why when you have that kind of talent, the coaches don't give you the rock. And I know it was game script dependent, but you can't expect when you have a talent like that to get, you know, to Tony Pollard should not be out touching Ezekiel Elliott, point blank, period. I think Ezekiel Elliott for the first round fantasy investment, you're expecting more than that many touches and 8 fantasy points. I think, you know, for an offense as potent as they are, he should be thriving like any other high potent offense a la Kansas City Chiefs, right? You should be giving the boy 20 touches a game. He should be putting up 20 plus fantasy points on average. And everyone else is still going to eat because they've established the run. It opens up the pass, you know, the game script. And I think, you know, Ezekiel Elliott for all of his, you know, shenanigans, you know, he looks like he came in more mature, more focused, in better shape. But that didn't translate to production. And I'm thinking the shelf life for running backs, we know what it's like, you know, and you know, you could be a hero a year ago and, you know, you could just fall off the map. And I wonder if this is the year where we start to see the decline of one Ezekiel Elliott. What's your take? All
right, so you said a few things. Like, here's the thing, Skip. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Skip. Here's the thing. You can't just base what you're saying off of one game, and it sounds like you are. Tampa Bay had the top, if not one of the best run defenses in the NFL last year. And again, off of one game, we still don't know yet, but the odds are they're returning those same guys to the same position. They're probably going to do the same things. You also have to remember Dallas's O-line was not premium Dallas O-line. You still had the right guard out.
Zach Martin was out.
Zach Martin out.
But the line looked good, I thought.
But Raph, you got to understand. They look good in the role that they were playing, which is to pass block. They weren't asked to, you know, put helmet on helmet and open up holes for Zeke. So, you know, with that being said, Dak Prescott was still pressured. He was still hit. He was still sacked. So they did good. They held up versus a very ferocious, you know, D-line. But, you know, we can't say, you know, Zeke should be thriving just based off of the results of one game. And then I'm the owner of him in fantasy. So I definitely hope that he, you know, is able to give more than what we saw the other night. But it comes with the understanding that the game plan just was not for him. Last year with Dak being out, again, like, what was he going to do? Dak was out. The whole O-line was out. Now, let's just be real here. I think that with age, Father Time, again, like he's starting to get up there. I believe he's like 26 or so. So that's any running back. I mean, unless you're one of the all-time greats, you know, the Marshall Faulks of the world, guys like that. I personally believe he should be having his Renaissance years. Like, this would be like that window of those like supreme production. But you also got to remember they paid Dak $175 million to throw that ball. So, you know, you have a couple factors not working in his favor. I would say that Zeke is still Zeke. I think that his rededication to his craft is only going to help him out. I think he needs to get to a land of being efficient with whatever it is they give him. But I would say that the team provides the biggest obstacle, his own team, to him showing that he can be 1,600 yard back. I mean, you have a coach who just doesn't want to throw the ball, run the ball ever. You have an O-line that's aging. And, you know, you on any given Sunday, you're going to have the quality opponent and game script. So you have a few factors working against him. Yeah, he looks the part. He is the part. I mean, again, he has tread on his tires, but he's not at the age yet where the guy just falls off a cliff. So, you know, again, one game, I'm not holding against them. They have another tough game this week. and Lyle Collins is out on, up front for the next 5 games. So they have some hurdles. They have some self-inflicted, wounds as well, where, the O-line is not what it was. It's not Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Collins, Tyron Smith of like 2016. These guys have all aged. So Zeke is still Zeke, with the caveat that with age comes sort of attrition, if you will. I mean, he's not going to be the same guy as he was at 21, but I think he can still be an effective, efficient back when the game script goes in his favor. Dallas has to be beating a team and they start to give him the ball to close out the clock. Pollard presents an entirely different skill set. And then you also have to remember, those two being on the field at the same time is actually an asset. I mean, you have 2 talented running backs where the play could go either way. So I don't think Zeke is falling off at all. I just think that there's a temptation, what have you done with me lately thing where people just automatically say, yeah, he's not the same, he's falling off. I don't think that at all. I have to see it. I have to literally see it. If you look at the game within the game, the moves that he was making around the O-line, things like that, he was shifty. He was making guys miss in the hole, but, you're playing a top defense. So, no. It would also help if they had a fullback, but, that's for another day.
Jerry.
So, unless you want to add on to that, I believe we have reached the end. We did it in 1 hour and 6 minutes.
We good, man. I think that was a good closing segment on what the people are talking about. So
give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want, bro.
There's no real housekeeping items. I would just say for everybody, make sure your IR spots are proper. Remember, we have 2 for COVID, 2 for injury. If anyone is activated off COVID, they have to come on an IR spot. So just everybody keep an eye on that. I try to keep an eye on it, but I may miss some. So I'm relying on everybody to do what they need to do. Anything else, Raph?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out to anybody who wants to jump on the podcast. We're definitely looking for diversity of opinions and just kind of some fresh voices. So I'm gonna throw out an open invite to anybody who wants to hop on the show and partake in what we do, because it's a good time and we definitely want to hear what you guys got to say, whether it's about what you heard or about what you seen moving forward. So I'll just throw it out there, man. If you're interested and you got the time, reach out to AC, Vernon, myself, and we'll make it happen.
Oh, one last thing. I just want to say thank you to everybody. We got donations. People sent in 15, 20, 30. I mean, thank God. It was very appreciated. It went to, the cameos. It went to the helmets. It really did us all some good. And I just thank everybody for giving us that relief off of like the final bill. It's nothing like when you go to a restaurant, man, and like, we've been drinking and we had the finest steaks all night and
he's like, I got the drinks.
Right. The appetizers, right. And somebody's like, and you look at that check. I mean, we all want to, just be like, I got that. But it's always good, man, if somebody else is like you said, like, I got the drinks. Y'all go ahead. It's like, thank God. Cause you go home, like that's a very silent car ride with your lady where, mm-hmm. You had to be big boss, pockets, and you're really not. So,
we eat Cheerios in the morning. We ain't going to the diner.
Right. So outside of that, I would just like to say, thank you for that. Again, we mentioned it earlier, but this week's sponsor was Fantasy Pros. Thank you, Fantasy Pros, for the wonderful insight. Your copyrights will stay with you. We just use your chart for promotional purposes. And that's it.
So we like I said, we wish everybody a good week too, good health, and fight hard and let's see where things end up after next week's games.
All right, coast to coast.
Latest. Peace.